Damien and his two friends decided to celebrate Damien's promotion by having fun. Instead of going to a nightclub as usual, they opted to camp by the lake for the celebration. When they arrived at the lake, the sun was about to set behind the distant mountains. The crimson hue of the sky cast a mesmerizing reflection on the gently rippling waves. The surroundings were surrounded by trees, with a large forest in the background. After Damien's promotion, he was peacefully taking in the surroundings and breathing in the fresh air. A man who wanted to capture the sunset was struggling to find the best angle from a distant hilltop. After pressing the shutter for the last time, he glanced in the direction where Damien and his friends were. Then he disappeared behind the hill. The tents were ready shortly after. While Damien and Justin were starting a fire in the middle, Shane was bringing food and drinks from the car. The man who had been taking photos on the nearby hilltop was now passing by their group. He was a medium-height young man wearing a light-colored fabric hat resembling that of a traveler, and he had a camera in his hand. He briefly glanced at the group before continuing on. He had striking deep blue eyes. His pale white skin accentuated the color of his eyes even more. For someone taking photos outdoors, his skin didn't seem to be affected by the sun at all. When Shane noticed the man, he called out to him from behind.
"Hey buddy! Are you a photographer?"
The man stopped and after a while, turned his head to look at the group. Shane repeated,
"Hey buddy! Are you a photographer? Nice camera you've got there."
The man was standing at a distance and seemed reluctant to come closer. Shane walked towards him. Shane's assertive attitude from his workplace was evident here too.
"Will you take our picture too? I'll pay you for it."
The man finally spoke, his voice devoid of emotion and with an earthy tone. "I'm a nature photographer." It was a subtle refusal, but Shane persisted.
"We're celebrating. You know it's important to immortalize beautiful memories. If you can take good photos."
The man interrupted Shane. "I'm here for the sunset." Shane continued to insist on getting what he wanted, even though the photographer was obviously reluctant this time.
"I understand. You're a nature photographer. But aren't we also part of nature?"
Shane laughed with an air of superiority. But the young man didn't even smile. Finally, he said,
"Well, I can take a few shots for you."
They approached the group together, and the man took their photos. The blank expression on his face persisted. Shane quickly grabbed the camera and eagerly began looking at the photos taken. His demeanor made it evident that he was impressed by the photos.
"Wow!"
he exclaimed.
"You really know what you're doing. You know what? I'll give you extra payment."
As Shane looked through the photos one by one, the man seemed tense. He reached out his hand towards the camera, but Shane didn't notice.
"I'd also like to see your previous work. Wow, for example, this is a fantastic sunset photo. Wow, this one is very impressive."
Suddenly, Shane's brows furrowed, and he fell silent for a moment.
"Are these us in this photo?"
he said, raising his head.
"You've taken our photos from behind us. Probably from right around there."
Shane was surprised. A mocking expression formed on the man's blank face as he took the camera from Shane's hand.
"After all, aren't you also part of nature? And I'm a photographer,"
he said. He didn't offer any further explanation. The superior attitudes seemed to have shifted. Shane adopted a serious demeanor. After taking the group's photos, the photographer handed his phone to Shane.
"Here, write your email address here so I can send you the photos."
As Shane typed his email address into the man's phone, he noticed dried red stains on the man's boots.
"Did you bleed?"
The man looked at his boots, lifted the blood-stained sole, and said,
"No, I just accidentally stepped on a dead squirrel."
After the photographer left, it had gotten completely dark. The photographer's strange and cold demeanor, along with the photo he had taken of Damien and his friends without their prior knowledge, was a topic of conversation for a while but was quickly forgotten. The celebration, accompanied by guitar sounds and songs, and fueled by alcohol, lasted until around 2 a.m. Everyone was getting ready to go to their tents. Justin walked a bit away to pee, heading behind the tents. Damien and Shane could see their friend's phone light from where they were sitting. After chatting for a short while, they realized that Justin still hadn't come back. Justin was no longer in the spot where he had been. Neither Justin's phone light nor any other moving silhouette was visible. Their calls to him went unanswered. At first, they thought it might be a joke, but the serious atmosphere quickly took over. They decided to search for him. They called Justin's phone, but it was off. Damien grabbed a strong flashlight. The beam of the flashlight turned almost everything it touched into daylight. Shane took a knife with him, and Damien picked up a piece of wood. Calling out, they began to walk towards the forest behind the tents. The ground was dry, and there were no footprints or anything resembling them. They held their breath and shivered with every rustling leaf. Suddenly, Shane jumped with curses. He had stepped on something. When they looked with the flashlight, they saw a dead squirrel. Its throat had been cut. The photographer came to their mind. Shane touched the squirrel and said it was still a little warm. He began to grip his knife tighter.
"We need to call the police,"
Damien said. They continued to call out for Justin as they searched. Before long, they saw 2 more dead squirrels covered in blood on the path. A few steps later, there was a dead rabbit. It had been killed in the same way.
Could this be the work of that strange guy?
Shane wondered.
What if he harmed Justin? There was no one else around except the photographer,
Damien replied. A little later, they found Justin's phone on the ground, broken. As they walked a little further, they saw Justin lying on his back on the ground. He was groaning almost inaudibly. Blood was dripping from his head. He was having trouble keeping his eyes open. They immediately called for help from the police and ambulance teams. According to the testimony, no one had seen anyone taking photos around matching their description. When Justin regained consciousness, he told the police that he didn't come face to face with the culprit, but something resembling a camera kept hitting him on the head while the man was dragging him. The fact that the photographer didn't contact them for the photos also indicated that he was the one responsible for the crime. Even 5 years later, this incident remains the darkest and most chilling memory in Damien, Shane, and Justin's lives, still vivid in their memories.